Hi, this is Michael Willems, the Speedlighter. That's me on the left there with Pen Gillette, one of my heroes, whom I photographed the other night. But that's not what this short post is about. This video is about another Lightroom tip that most people don't know. A very important Lightroom tip for studio photographers. Let's go into Lightroom and let's look at some pictures I took the other day. One picture will do. And for these pictures I had three lights. I had a key light that lights up this side of the face. I had a fill light 2 stops darker that lights up this side of the face, and a little bit later on I also, as you see, had a hair light, shampooy goodness light. My fourth light was a light on the background, and that light blew out the background completely, and when I looked at it on my camera I saw a flashing white background. I like the blinkies. Why? Because in this case I want the background to be completely blown out, because I want to be able to put this picture on a white background, for example. Alright, but since 2012, the latest version of the camera calibration, the ACR version that Lightroom uses, it protects us from ourselves. Even when importing, what happens is we are protected from ourselves. When I click on this little triangle on the right here in the develop module in the histogram, you'll see what is overexposed, and it's not the entire background, which I saw as overexposed, very much so on my camera, because it was. No, it's just a little bit. Why is that? Because if I go down in the develop module to the bottom pane, camera calibration, I'll see that the process used is the 2012 current process. So that process, when Adobe introduced Lightroom 4, to my dismay, stops you from yourself. It stops you from overexposing things, or at least if possible it tries to do that. So my overexposed background is brought back so it's not quite overexposed, and it really was very, very bright. Simple. All I do is I go back to the 2010 process and look at that. Now we have the entire background overexposed, or at least almost the entire background. If there's any left I can go to basic perhaps, and perhaps let's see, do the exposure up a little bit and then recovery down a little bit if I want to decrease it. So now I have the background that I wanted and that I shot. That's all you need to do. Note also that excuse me, when you do that, you go back to the old controls in the basic pane, exposure, recovery, fill light, and blacks, where if I want the blacks to be darker I move it to the right instead of from 0 to the left. So I don't do that for all pictures, I do that only for those where I have blown out background. I go back to Process 2010. And here's 2012 again, and we're protected from ourselves. Another thing to note is that the profile here, if it's a raw image, because that's the only time that this appears, this pane, the profile gives me the choices that I have in the camera as well. Adobe Standard is how Adobe interprets RAW. Camera Standard is how Adobe thinks the camera interprets RAW, and that's a little bit better than what we had there. Camera Portrait gives me a little bit less sharpness. Camera Landscape gives me more sharpness and different colors. So this is Adobe emulating what your camera does inside it. So I'll set it back to Adobe Standard, which is usually quite good, except again for that protecting from ourselves. So here we go. I have an image that's good, and if I of course click off the triangle I don't see a difference, but there is a difference. This is now pure white, and I can put this on a white background without seeing white and then gray. That was my tip for the day. I hope you enjoyed it, and for studio photographers this is something you'll use fairly often when you shoot on a white background and you want to blow it out. So even when Adobe starts protecting us for ourselves, they're clever enough to allow us to go back to the old way of doing it for one or more pictures, or even all pictures if you wished, which probably wouldn't be sensible. And we're good. Thanks, and see you on speedlighter.ca daily posts with tips, tricks, everything photography. This is Michael Willems. Bye bye.